Hi, this is Ben Colby, Teen Librarian at Enoch Pratt. Today we're going to make a bookend. First, I'm going to build the basic structure of it, and then we are going to put a nice design on it. I want to make this one look like a Baltimore row home. So I'm just going to start with a box, drag it over to my workspace. Um, and so the idea of a bookend is that basically it's going to be an L shape. We want to stretch it out, and I have one right here that is about 4 inches wide. So let's make this one a little thinner, about 3 inches wide, 75 millimeters. And I'm gonna flatten this. Let's make this the bottom piece, and let's start with 10 millimeters. And then let's stretch this back. This is like the foot of it. And I'm gonna stretch that back between 2 and 3 inches. Okay. So that's pretty good. And then the last thing I want to do to this shape is just drag this radius bar just a little bit so that the edges round off a little bit. And let's make a copy of this. I'm going to just hit the duplicate button or Control D. This one gets rotated 90 degrees, and I'm going to hit the D key to get it back on the surface. And I can just overlap it like that. Try to look all around and make sure that something isn't sticking out. So I think we're pretty much getting there, except the height is definitely going to have to be a little taller than this. I'm going to stretch this all the way up to 100 or 4 inches. So the idea is that your books would sit against this. And I'm going to do one more thing. This we said was 10. I'm just going to lift it up to 15. I want to make this a little denser than usual, and I want it to have a little extra weight on the bottom. So I made that part kind of thick. And then we're also going to need something to brace it. And you could really use any shape for that. What if we used a cylinder? That seems interesting to me. I'm just going to stretch this 45 degrees. The only thing is it can't stick out. That's the problem. Okay, forget the cylinder. I'm just going to use this shape again, duplicate it, and drag it off to the side. Let's just, I'm taking that down and making it a little thinner, and I'm just going to tip it 45 degrees exactly, and I can use the inside snap grid to do exactly 45. Now I can overlap that perfectly. And I'll just lift it off the ground a little more to get more of it on there. Line it up. And you want to make sure that everything is completely overlapping, but that looks great. So this is something that would function as a bookend. And one thing that wouldn't hurt is to glue some kind of sticky pad to the bottom so that it doesn't slide around as much. So you could stop there if you wanted, but let's think about some things we could add to it. Text right here is not a bad idea. You could put that on some of these surfaces. Designs you could use. You could take cutouts like let's just demonstrate that for a second. I'll do a star shape and a heart shape. So let's shrink the star a little bit, and I'm going to stretch it up, and I'm going to change it into a hole and just stick it on the back there. Or you know what, instead of putting it on the back, what if I cut it out of the front? So I would just rotate it forward and lift it up. That makes a little more sense because you want to keep that weight on the bottom. You don't want to cut out too much of it. Let's do the same thing with the heart. Oh my. Just change it into a hole. And you definitely need to use some different camera views for this. All right, so I've got both of the hole shapes sticking out, and so I'm just going to select everything and group it. Pretty good. That would be a nice book stand. And you could definitely ask me to make 2 if you want. Let's start on this Baltimore Rowhome idea. And just to start with, I'm going to ungroup that again because I want to take an exact copy of this shape again. Duplicate it, move it over. And this is going to form a panel on the front. I guess I could regroup this just to get those cutouts again. And this is going to form a panel on the front. It probably doesn't need to be so thick. That's fine. I'm going to lay it down for now and hit D to get it on the ground. And I'll move that off to the side. So what, if this is the basic shape of a Rowhome, I'm actually going to make it just a little skinnier. And just as a model, I'm going to take a look at some Google images. So I just Google searched Baltimore Rowhomes. There's some different designs, but I know I want to have the flat top. I know I want to have 2 windows on the upper floor and 1 on the bottom floor. And I know I want this crown above the windows. So I think that would be enough, and maybe something for steps if I get ambitious. So how would we do that? So to create the Rowhome, there are different ways to do this, but I'll start with the windows. So let's create a window shape that is about the right size, and I'll center this again. So is that the right size for a window? I want it to be just a little bigger, a little longer. 1, 2, 3, and then a larger door. So that'll work. And then I need to cut some windows out of this. So I'm creating a smaller thing that I just stretched up a little bit. Let's make that a little bigger. So the idea is I'm just leaving a little rim around the outside on the top, and then I'm going to create a duplicate of it, or Alt-drag, or copy and paste, and just drag it down so there's a little bit of separation in the middle, and in this case I'll just stretch the bottom down a tiny bit more. So that looks great for a window. And then what about that crown? Well, I think I want to make it out of wedge shapes. So let's try that. I'll start by rotating it this way and rotating it this way. So I guess, or other way. This way, right. Because so that'll be the centerpiece in the middle, and then so let's squish it a little bit. I can even make this a little, you can make a thing big and then shrink it before it goes in place. So that's fine. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, or let's just duplicate it. And then I'm going to rotate, I guess 60, I don't know. See, that looks pretty good. And then duplicate it again, or you know what, I'm going to duplicate this one right in place and then mirror it with this M button or this key over here. And then that's pretty good. I just want to leave a little gap. And let's hold that together with a rounded shape. So how are we going to do that? We're going to rotate it this way first, and then we're going to rotate it this way. And then I'm going to hit D to get it back on the surface, and it's starting to look like something. I just want to flatten this out. And actually, what if I have it overlapping? So I want to drop this down just so we have a little bit of layer definition between these things. But I'm really getting there. I kind of like that. And then I'm just going to take these 4 shapes together, group them, and then just squish them a little bit more. It doesn't look exactly like the picture, but you know, these things are so tiny. You don't want to put tiny, tiny details on things. You just want something recognizable. Okay. So I'm just trying to line that up on the top. So I really like that for my, oh, let's stretch it up. So that works. Oh, and then make sure it's still not quite centered, is it? So this is great. And so I could just group this all together and you can see that that's a pretty nice window. So then, except I'm not going to group it just yet. I'm just going to go ahead and ungroup because I want to make duplicates of all of this all at the same time. Why? Because I want those holes to cut out, not just of, oops, not just of the window shape, but out of the entire panel. And it doesn't actually even matter if these are perfectly aligned. I guess I do want them to be a little smaller, or a little lower for the second floor. That's good. And then I'm going to put this from the side just to select it. That's great. And then I'm going to copy and paste that group and put it down here for the third window. And I'm actually going to paste it one more time. I just want to make some modifications on this one to make it look different from the others because it's the door. So what do we do for the door? Well, I don't know. Let me just let me squish the crown down a little bit, but I'm only going to have one hole on the door. Yeah, that's better. So then the door goes here and it's going to be a little lower than everything else. So this is looking good. I'm just going to have to squish those all down into place. I'm going to do it all at once. You'll see what that looks like. One more thing that I really want to try. Under shape generators, it's not the featured one. Under all shape generators, I want to find the brick wall. And I have a couple options here. I'm not sure which one is the best. I'm going to try this one. It just needs, yeah, that's pretty good. So let's see. I need to lay it down. And I want it to be a little bit more dense. Like, I want the bricks to be smaller. So I think if I change these settings, number of rows, number of columns, yes. Just make the number a little higher. Yes, that's making it much more dense. Wonderful. And then I am just going to stretch that up so that it is about the same height as this. So just sticking up off the surface a little bit. It doesn't even need to be completely over the surface. Very cool. And then let's put that over here and then just kind of, ooh, that's kind of weird looking, isn't it? Well, that's okay. I can keep changing the settings even after I place this. Oh, I want it to not go quite all the way over the outside. Okay, so I'm actually fine with the horizontal direction. I just want the bricks to be squished vertically, so more rows, I guess. Yeah, that's good. So that adds a really nice little pattern. And I just, let's see, I do need to put some steps on there and a ridge for the top. So let's do that. And these, I'm just going to make exactly the right size the first time. The windows I still need to adjust. This could obviously be more ornate at the top, but I'm just going to put a simple ridge across. Oops. Yeah. And that is pretty good. and then the steps, which really, it just needs to be a suggestion of steps. You could even just have like a couple of little skinny triangles. Yeah. So I'm just shrinking that down to about 1.5 millimeters. Copy and paste, just give it a little separation. Even less separate, needs some gap. And then I'm just going to copy and paste both of those together, and now I have 4, which is enough. Group them. And I know it looks weird to have the stairs be all flat like this, but this is a 2-dimensional image, so don't worry about it. It's going to look cool. I mean, I guess you could change it if you wanted to stagger the steps. I'm not going to. Final thing. Here's a neat trick. If you want to just change the height of certain things, I'm going to look at from the side. Oops, I need more of a side view, don't I? And I just want to drag only over this part. I do not want to catch anything on the bottom. And now, if I just squish that, you can see I can just kind of lower it right to the height that I need. Ta-da! That is beautiful. I love this. So now, the final, well, is this the final magic step? I still think it's a little too thick, to be honest. But yeah, that's actually, so you know what? I know that I'm going to squish it down, but before I do, I just want the definition on this to get a little bit more, stretch it a little more, so that I don't squish everything into just being completely flat when I'm done. All right. The big magic merge is here. And hopefully this doesn't break Tinkercad. It is taking a little while, but that looks great. I think I could go back and make the windows a little bigger and the doors now that I see this, but that's okay. I'm just going to work with it for now. I want to shrink this down to, I guess I don't want to go too much lower than 10. I'll stick with 10, which is a little less than ½ inch. So I'm going to go ahead and now attach this back to my design. So 90 degrees this way, I hit D, I move it onto here. Oh, well, the bar goes across the door, which looks cool. And you just want to make sure that this isn't sticking out to block the books. You want that side to be completely flat. Pretty cool. And actually, I think it's sticking out a little too far this way, so I can even just squish this whole shape in a little bit so that it's overlapping with that. Grouping this together. And this, I believe, I would want to print in this orientation. Why? Because we can create a support tower just to wrap around the outside, and we might need some other support towers holding this up, but I think it would make the detail on the top really good to print it at the very top. Sheesh. Thank you for joining me for this activity, and I hope you'll reach out if you have any questions.